Good morning, everyone. I try to see if we can explain the situation in Mexico and how we are focusing in order to accelerate. Well, my name is Marcelo Melchior. I started Nestlé 25 years ago. I started in sales in Brazil and then did my first 10 years in chocolate. Then I had the opportunity to work in Peru, Venezuela, Mexico first time 10 years ago, Panama heading Central America, and my last job before heading Mexico, my current job, I was heading the confectionery SBU in Vevey. So to start the presentation, so this is our portfolio in Mexico. The portfolio is very diverse, but it's very balanced. It's basically based in three main pillars of the business. These main pillars are coffee, dairy, infant nutrition, and now we have an emerging pillar, which is the pet food category, that is doing very, very well in Mexico. If we talk a little bit about Mexico, first of all, we are seeing it's a big country. Population is more or less half the size of Brazil. You have a young country, high urban population. It's some of the world records that we have is the number one in overweight and obesity. 70% of the population suffers from overweight and obesity. If we take obesity alone, it's not the world champion, but it's still number 2, because the US is number 1 in obesity, but if we take both of them together, we are a number 1. And you have this polarizing situation where we have overweight and obesity on the population, but also we have high anemia rates. So we have to live with these two realities. In the social economic, you can see that most of the population is in the classes C and D. And if you divide the country in 3 clusters or 3 regions, you have the north of the country, which is very influenced by the US. A lot of the maquiladoras and main of the manufacturing facilities that supply the US are based on the north of the country. You have the south of the country, which is very traditional, much closer to what happens in Central America. A lot of traditional trade, mom and pops. There is where we have a lot of our coffee production and cocoa production in the country. And you have the central of the country, which is very, very urbanized, hectic, let's say. This is what we call the Valley of Mexico. This yellow part there of the country is where all the power and the economic possibilities are in the market also. So in terms of some characteristics, the biggest partner of Mexico is the US by far. 80% of the exports come to the US. And not only that, you have the remittances of all the Mexicans that live here in the US that is sent to their families in Mexico. Therefore, you can see that there is a huge interdependence between Mexico and the US. And in Mexico, we follow almost daily what's happening in the US and how we can see if the future is going to go in the direction or another because of this heavily interdependence. You can see oil, remittances, tourism, a lot of the manufacturing facilities of the US firms. The first of the manufacturing is in Mexico. So everything that happens in the US is very important for us. Then you can see the GDP per capita and in the PPP, in the purchasing power parity. You have a $16,000 Swiss francs on that. 60% of the employees of the economy are in the informal economy, trying to to do a lot of business. So basically these people don't pay taxes. And you can see the inflation rates is very moderate, but you start seeing some GDP growth that has been slowing down on the last 2 years. And the forecast for 2014 is 2.7% of GDP growth only. Then we're talking a little bit about the food and beverages environment where we are. And we can see that it's a 95 billion Swiss francs business. If you take the population, Mexico is the number 11 on the world. And if you take the food and beverages environment, is the number 9 in the world. Nestlé is the number 2 company in the market with 3.2 billion Swiss francs in this market. But it's a very, very important operation, and it's a very well recognized company in the Mexico. What about the consumer? The consumer in Mexico is a little bit different than in other parts. First of all, you have a huge, very intrinsic food culture in the country. Really, you know, and here in the US you can feel it, the Mexican food is a very characteristic one, spice, etc., etc. Then you have family values are still very, very important, which is some tradition that also the Mexicans that live in the US already have and maintain. They are changing little by little, but these family traditions, these meetings on the weekend, the importance of the grandparents and the parents, etc. So normally the families are very, very strong together. Then you have the price points are still very important. I'm going to come and explain to you the importance between modern trade and traditional trade. But you have a certain price points of coins, 5 pesos, 10 pesos, 20 pesos, that are very important to maintain because the loyalty of the consumer can shift very fast, and the management of different pack sizes, price points is also very important. Today, what's happening is that the Mexican is getting very, very connected in the digital world. And YouTube has a fantastic penetration in Mexico. They almost watch YouTube more than TV, and they look at YouTube very, very often. So we have really to have this connection, and the connection is going more and more into mobile devices, not a proper computer. So they are jumping straight away from not having access to the digitally to have access on the digital through their cell phones. And these mobile devices are very important. Loyalty to the brands are very, very also a reality, and the Mexicans are very, very proud of their origins. You know that in the Americas, basically you have 3 countries with a strong history, and Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru. And these are countries where you had strong civilizations before the Spaniards arrived in our continent. No? Then, how is the retail environment? The retail environment is more or less 50-50. But this is not very accurate, because even the modern trade, the most successful formats that, for example, Walmart uses is a bodega format that looks very much like a traditional trade. You enter, and of course, we are in the business, but as a consumer, you enter into a bodega and you have the impression to be in a big mom and pops. Independent supermarkets, very small, cement floor, but you have all the logistics behind of Walmart and doing all the benefits of that, but the consumer, they feel that they are in a very traditional trade. And you have 700,000 outlets in the mom and pops that you can see from the picture. This is more or less how they look like. Some of them have bars, so you don't even can enter into the mom and pops. But we see great opportunities. For example, the per capita consumption of the main categories in Mexico are still very low, even compared to other Latin American countries. You can see here, compare coffee consumption compared to Brazil, it's less than half. So it's 237 cups per year per inhabitant. In Brazil, it's the double. You can see the chocolate consumption. I mean, Mexico is the country that gave us the chocolate. But nobody eats chocolate there. So there are huge opportunities. And our job is really to develop these per capita consumptions in everything, even in dairy. You can see a country with these levels of obesity and overweight. I mean, dairy is really a big opportunity for all of us. So, what are the challenges? So we see, I was talking about the GDP. The GDP last year grew at only 1.1%. This year, we were expecting 3.7%, and now we are speaking about 2.7%. So the economy needs to pick up. But the government is doing the right things. The government approved 4 different reforms in order to have the legal base and the legal infrastructure in order to grow again. The most important reform by far is the energy reform. And the energy reform could bring Mexico into the energy place again. Because Mexico was losing competitivity in the oil production, not even talking about shale gas and things like this, that, all the American shale gas reserves in Texas, they continue to Mexico. I mean, the border is just something that the human being put there. I mean, on the geological, they don't know that, no? So it was the energy reform, education reform, financial systems, banking. The penetration of banking in Mexico is very, very low. And the tax reform. I already had a lot of questions about the tax reforms and all that, and these new taxes that arrived in Mexico. We can discuss this afterwards. And so these reforms are setting the scene for a future growth in Mexico. But for the time being, you pay some toll. I mean, the economy is a bit soft, and that's what we see today. The consumption is still, everybody is still waiting for the details, regulations in order to implement the laws, and comes the investments for the energy and the other parts. You can see that the consumer confidence, everybody is in wait and see, trying to see what happens. The competition is increased. It's no secret for everyone, the insecurity and some organized crime that it's happening in Mexico, and this has to be tackled as a society as a whole, and some corruption that exists in the country. No? What we have achieved, as you saw also in the Brazilian presentation, we have been there since the 30s. It's the first factory was opened in Ocotlan in 1935. You can imagine these Swiss people arriving in 33 in Mexico by boat or by ship, and then opening a factory there, and then you have the Second World War in the middle. So I suppose they didn't didn't even have contact with their bosses. But they succeeded. It's there. The first factory was working from 1935, and we had opening of factories in the 40s, in the 50s, all the way some acquisitions, and we have new investments arriving very, very soon. This is the footprint we have in the country, a much, much smaller country than Brazil, but it's a country that has a privileged position, geographical position, because we are very close to the US. And being close to the US helps Mexico to have a lot of the supply chain, be part of the same supply chain as the US companies, and this makes much more competitivity, because in the past a lot of firms went to Asia, and the supply chain was much more complicated than it is to be just there on the border. Nestlé has 13 factories, 36 distribution centers, a lot of sales office, and 1 R&D center for baby food, Gerber, our Gerber unit in Querétaro. So, and our portfolio, it's interesting because we have very, very strong local brands. What in confectionery is called the heartland brands. And it's the correct name, because it's really brands that a Mexican, every time that they are in Chicago and they have one of those brands, they cry a little bit because of all the emotions that brings. You heard yesterday in Nestlé USA, they are launching a coffee made with the abuelita on abuelita flavor, which is a very, very strong there. So the local brands that we have are very, very powerful. I mean, you have an abuelita, you have a consomate, you have Santa Maria, which is the only spring water in the Mexican market. And then you have global brands. But these global brands don't mean that the Mexicans don't believe it's theirs. When you talk about Nescafé Clásico, it's really a Mexican brand. It's really a Mexican brand. And it's not only a success south of the border, it's a success here. Because it's a particular flavor that the Mexicans, they really love. There was a question about how to develop the soluble coffee market and all that. It's a different situation, but in Mexico, the previous generations developed the flavor and the way to prepare coffee the way the Mexicans they like. In any household, you have a jar of Nescafé. And they have this and they consume. Of course, they don't consume as much as we would like, because you saw the per capita consumption. But we have a huge operation, a huge future and a bright future in order to grow this per capita consumption to approach at least 1 cup per day in a year. So we would move from 237 cups to 360 cups. So it's already a good challenge, no? And then you have some global, relatively new, but aspirational brands. These are very well embraced by the Mexicans, from the Nespresso, the Nescafé Dolce Gusto, the Pro Plan, Perrier and San Pellegrino, etc. And we are really in all the stages of life of the consumer. And in every occasion, from the breakfast to the dinner to the different in-home, out-of-home, etc. And of course, the different social economical levels. We have the PPP offering, a more mainstream offering, and the premium offering. Now I just wanted to raise your attention that sometimes it's not a specific product. For example, you can see here, this is a Nescafé Clásico in a sachet that addresses a specific distribution channel, and a specific price point. And you have the same product here, the Nescafé Clásico, which is a mainstream, is a jar. You have to pay 60 pesos for this jar. So sometimes you go for a sachet, sometimes you go for the jar, and then you have other offerings like the Taster's Choice, the Dolce Gusto. You see the Nido, we have a version, a super premium version that Excella Gold, and you have the Nido 1 Plus here, and the traditional Nido down there. So sometimes it's really the same product, and how to make our brands affordable to the consumer, whether it is an occasion, whether it is their cash flow. I mean, if I don't have more than 10 pesos, I want to buy a sachet and that's it. Even if sometimes the price point per kilo is a bit higher, but is the cash flow that we are addressing. And then also very, very healthy situation in terms of market share. You can see the number of brands and categories where we are number one, and the number where we are number two in the cases. Sometimes we are not so very, very close number two, but we are there, and this is a very, very strong situation. Here are the growth. The growth, we have been growing in the last 2-3 years 4%. I heard your suggestion that we have to learn from Brazil and grow more. And we have been improving the trade operating profit in a very healthy way already. The trade operating profit of Nestlé Mexico is already very healthy. And what are we going to do in the future? So first, our vision and mission is very, very well aligned with the Nestlé vision and mission. And of course, it's in Spanish, so everybody can understand, and we can really align the whole organization towards that. The second is also, as Juan Carlos mentioned, in Brazil, we have a very strong recognition in the market. You can see in the first two charts, Nestlé perceived as a leader in nutrition, health, and wellness by consumers. We are the recognized one. The number two is not as far as you saw from Brazil, but you have very strong Mexican brands in the food category, but this obliges us really to make the difference and improve every time. And with the key opinion leaders, this is really where we are very strong. When we are talking with the key opinion leaders, we are really recognized. We have Nestlé Nutrir as well as in Brazil, and here we reach 3 million kids. And this is, I wanted to highlight with you this, because not only we give some nutritional information to the kids, but we measure them and we incentivize them to go to play outside. Move. Don't stay in front of TV. And we're not talking about boring exercises like we do as adults. Talking, go play. Play the ball. Do something. Don't stay in front of TV and all this. And this, we are reaching 3 million people. So we want to do things that move the needle, that we can really improve the lives of these kids, and hopefully these kids arrive at home and they say, look, Dad, at home, in the school, they told me that I had to have different colors on the plate and all this. We arrive here and you only give me tacos. So we want to have, not waiting for these kids, because the benefit for these kids is going to be a reality, but also not waiting for 10 years to see these benefits, but to say, look, I can influence more or less like all these ecological movements did in the schools. I say, look, let's separate the trash and all these kind of things, but doing in nutrition. And this is a fantastic program. I like it a lot. You can hear that I stopped a little bit here. And we are the pilot market and a very strong market for Nestlé in order to do all our program United for Healthier Kids that we are doing in Mexico. But also, we are very strong in creating shared value. And creating shared value, I'm going not to spend a lot here, but because I'm going to show you a video what we do in Nescafé. So we have the Nescafé plan, we have the cocoa plan, and of course we are very strong buyers of these categories and also the milk. In renewable energy, let me remind you that we are talking about Mexico, not Denmark or Norway. More than 80% of the energy consumed in our factory comes from the wind. Imagine that. And this was not me, this was the Juan Carlos team that did this. But I thought it was a mistake when I arrived. I said, what? 80, not 18. 80, more than 80% goes. And we don't go to 100 because the wind varies during the year. This is amazing. This is really a commitment to a long-term sustainability of the company. And of course, we have all the water savings and all this in a country important like important like this. What are our 5 must-win battles? And I like the word must-win battles because really you have the impression that if you don't do it, you lose your arm. It's really important. We cannot miss it. We have to strengthen our pillars. Remember the 3 pillars and even the 4th pillar that we were talking before. So it's dairy, coffee, infant nutrition, and now Nestlé Purina Pet Care. We have to balance our portfolio, creating new stars and resolving value destroyers. So here we have to create the more investment in the big future business, and also not trying to subsidize business all the time. Increase operational efficiency, train and align and empower our people, and increase availability of our products because this is key. So when we're talking about our stars, here are the stars again. So we need really to make these categories fly. And in these categories, not because we are leaders that we have to be just satisfied. You saw all the opportunities that we have in the per capita consumption. So we have to make this category grow every time. You also saw one of Pat's charts showing about the calorie conversion in Latin America. It was 44%, remember, and the US was 82 or 85. In Mexico, it's 25%. So the opportunities for pet food in Mexico are fantastic. And the Mexicans are realizing that their dogs and their cats are getting better and healthier if they give specialized nutrition for them. They don't need chiles, tacos, frijoles, and all that. I mean, the dogs are much more delicate than we do, than we are. And then we made choices. We already made one choice, which was to license our chilled dairy business. And this was facing reality, seeing, look, we had 99% of market share, 9.0. So it's our ability to win was in jeopardy, and we found a partner. We licensed our brands. Our brands are still in the market, and this is working well. And we want to reinvest in our stars. What are the roles of these stars? These are products and categories where we want to develop, where we want to grow. What do we ask is high growth and maintain a healthy marginal contribution. We are not asking now for a bottom line. Why we want that? Because once we achieve a critical mass, immediately it becomes very profitable. But for the time being, we have to overinvest on this. And we have great results in Dolce Gusto, Nescafé 3-in-1, Coffee Mate. It's a great, great success in Mexico. And we saw all the lactose intolerance that exists in the US. In Mexico is even higher, even for genetical reasons. So it's really a great opportunity. And culinary. Culinary is still a great opportunity for us. We have launched new innovations that are really changing the marketplace. I talked already on the digital part. We are working very hard on the digital, how we created the first digital acceleration team in Latin America. So we have this working, we are education and training, we are growing our investments and working very hard on this. And a lot of what we do in digital must be mobile friendly, because that's the most part where the Mexicans access the internet and the different digital situation. Route to market, I already spoke about the 3 Mexicos, the 3 regions. So in the south, you have a lot of mom and pops. In the north, you have a lot of convenience stores. And in the center, you have everything mixed up. So the opportunities in Mexico, we have to treat these 3 Mexicos in a different way in order to really, really improve our presence. Our products have almost 100% distribution. The big pillar, I mean, no mom and pops, no small shops, they can live without a Nescafé or a Carnation evaporated milk and all that. And these products arrive very well. But then we have all these new stars and all that we have to work, and we have a hybrid. We have in the center of the country the direct store delivery, a DSD. And in the north, we work more with the convenience store, and in the south, we work through our wholesalers. But in the center of the country, the direct stores delivery is very efficient because the stores' locations are very close one to another. And then you also heard that the president of the country and Paul Bulke announced investments of $1 billion in Mexico for the next 5 years. Mainly, these investments is 2 new factories, a pet food new factory and infant formula new factory, and the doubling of our breakfast cereal factory in Lagos de Moreno. And this was announced in Davos. We are also working a lot in NCE and operational efficiency in order to be better, SKU reductions, simplifying our distribution network and all this part. And in the people, really work on training, motivating, preparing our people for this new Mexico, these new opportunities that we can grasp. We are totally aligned with the group priorities and strategies. And I just wanted to conclude, and I'm going to finish here, and we are going to have a very small video that I wanted to show you about the Nescafé plan and how these can change the lives of people really on the ground. So we are deeply rooted in the country, long-term experience in Mexico, not only to the past but to the future, strong portfolio, we are market leaders, very deep consumer reach and consumer understanding, right choices. We are really making choices in order to focus where we can win and impacting society. So I just wanted to show the video, and then we open for questions.
es Eduardo Camarena, vivo en Tapachula, tengo la finca que se llama El Capricho. Y yo estudiaba en México. Venía en vacaciones, mi abuela adquiere el rancho, mi abuelo enferma, se van a México y me pide de favor que me haga cargo de la finca. No lo abandones, ayúdale a tu abuela a que no se pierda esto. Dije, sí, no, que no sé nada, pero dije, pues sí, está bien, yo lo hago. Afortunadamente ahorita ya después de que estuve en el curso de Planes Café, sí estoy seguro que le estuviera contento, ¿no? de ver las mejoras que hay, que estamos produciendo más, que tenemos mejor calidad de café.
Soy María de Lourdes Santos Osaya, actualmente administro la finca Chaperal y pertenezco al Plan Nescafé. Cuando participamos en el diplomado, en el primer diplomado que Nescafé nos brindó, y fue una maravilla, para nosotros fue una maravilla tener todo el conocimiento que nos brindaron de la creación de valor compartido de las empresas cafeticultoras. Por más de 100 años que ha estado la familia de mi esposo con la finca, ¿no? Pero del tiempo en que tenemos la sociedad con Nestlé, yo creo que hemos tenido ya la certidumbre, ¿verdad?, de lo que estamos haciendo. Tanto nosotros como los trabajadores han tenido mejoras, toda su calidad de vida, ¿no?
Yo, Elifas Bámaca, fui el primer productor que entré al Plan Nescafé, que confié en la compañía. Nestlé nada más nos compra el producto. Nosotros no trabajamos para Nestlé, nosotros trabajamos para nosotros mismos. Que sí estamos agradecidos con ellos por lo que nos dieron, estamos agradecidos. Nos invita a participar en el proyecto de certificación de 4C, Código Común para la Comunidad Cafetalera. ¿Qué es eso?
Prácticas que no debo de hacer en la finca.
No podemos cazar a los animales porque nos los estamos acabando.
El respeto a los niños, que yo no puedo permitir el trabajo infantil, ¿no?
Tenía todo el conocimiento y no me lo podía quedar. Nos reunimos, les empecé a explicar qué ventajas podríamos tener. Empezamos 16, ahorita ya somos 23. Hicimos nuestro primer vivero con esa dedicación, con ese amor, con esa cosa que ves a la gente trabajando.
Aquí en mi pueblo nos llamaron locos cuando empezamos a sembrar ese tipo de café. Nos decían que no iba a funcionar, que ese café no era de calidad, no tenía raíz. El café tradicional que le llamamos nosotros se empieza a producir a los 3 años. Sin embargo, al año vimos que ya tenía los primeros granos, el ensayo que nosotros llamamos. Nestlé tiene su método, descubrió un método de cómo hacer mejores plantas. Y eso lo están haciendo en Agromod, que tiene unas instalaciones, como dice, de primer nivel, de primer mundo, le llamamos nosotros algo científico, ¿no? Antes sembramos de 4 metros por 4 metros. Con nuestra nueva variedad que sembramos de 2,5 por 2,5, estamos sembrando 1,200 plantas por hectárea. Antes metíamos 600, 700 plantas por hectárea. Antes una plantita nos daba 4, 5 kilos, 6 kilos por mata. Hoy nos está dando hasta 24, 25 kilos. Aquí nosotros nada más levantamos 2 toneladas, 2,5 toneladas por hectárea. Ahorita estamos levantando 6 toneladas por hectárea. En el mismo terreno hay mayor productividad.
Mi nombre es Abdías Vázquez Pérez y soy el responsable de la asistencia técnica a productores de café en Tapachula, Chiapas. Su función principal es la de dar asistencia técnica a productores de café. Yo trabajo directamente con ellos para darles capacitación, acompañarlos para que ellos aumenten su productividad, que es uno de los objetivos principales del Plan Nescafé.
Yo lo veo este proyecto como la mejor alternativa que una empresa privada se ha preocupado por los productores de café.
Yo soy una convencida de que esto es una sociedad en la que ambos ganamos, ¿verdad? Que Nestlé es una empresa privada que tiene sus metas y sus objetivos, ¿verdad?, a mediano y largo plazo con productores como nosotros. Por eso es una creación de valor compartido.
So, Questions? I knew that the video would.
The video did it, Marcelo.
Maybe just also to share that, besides Mexico, and I think Juan Carlos mentioned, we also have Nescafé plant in Brazil, also Colombia, and a couple years ago actually started in Haiti with a small-scale program to help Haiti recover after the earthquake, and working in cooperation with the Inter-American Development Bank. So.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Stuart
Reed from BlackRock. So I know it's an obvious question, but do you want to talk a little bit about the soda tax and whether this is the beginning of something more widespread, and how you're thinking about the impact of that for food and beverage generally?
Yeah, in fact, first to set the stage, food and medicines in Mexico, they don't pay VAT taxes. The only exception is the sweet soft drinks or sweet beverages, each 1 peso per liter, and what is called the high calorie dense products, which is 275 calories per 100 grams. No matter, it's not important the size of the format. It's only if 100 grams has more than 275, you pay 8% of this special tax. So, seeing all these numbers about overweight and obesity, the government came with this proposal of tax, and this is a tax that exists in the market. In fact, this tax has slowed down a little bit the consumption on the traditional trade, not only of this category, but the traditional trade in general, because they just don't know how to collect the tax, and they still have the same available budget in order to buy. Let's see how it goes, and we, as a company, we comply with the laws, and we obey what's happening. It affects 12% of our portfolio only.
And do you want to talk about what happens in the future? Do you think this is something that will get adopted more widely into greater categories, greater
in
areas?
Mexico?
Yeah.
No, in Mexico, I think that's it. They have said that they won't touch for the time being any new taxes, any new surprises, and they have said this publicly. Huh? But then, talking about other countries, I'm not in a position to evaluate that. Huh?
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you talk about the, sorry, James Tyler from Berenberg. Can you talk about the proportion of products or your portfolio which is in the PPP category, and sort of the relative growth rates you're seeing there, and maybe just how that compares with the rest of the South American business? Thank you.
In our case, as I mentioned, a lot of the PPP categories, we have specific products for addressing the PPP opportunity in Mexico, but we also have formats of our main brands in these to address this opportunity. If we put together both specific products plus formats, we are talking around 20% of our portfolio, and the growth has been in the latest years similar to the rest of the company. So we don't see an acceleration on PPP on this. What we are seeing now, it's a real acceleration of premium with the Nescafé, the Nescafé Dolce Gusto, the Nespresso, the San Pellegrino, and all this. And compared to the rest of Latin America, I'm not in a position.
More or less in this sort of line,
Yes, please.
David.
Hi, David Hayes, Nomura. You talked about 3 very distinct areas in Mexico: north, central, and south, different channels, etc. I mean, can you give us a feel? We're not numbers, obviously, but give us a feel for the different margins that you earn across the 3 different areas, how they're changing, and why the differences are there. Thanks.
Yeah, look, in the north of the country, you have a heavy dependence on convenience stores and then the modern trade. And the mom and pops are relatively weak in this part of the country. Having said that, it's very efficient, the distribution is very efficient, the way we reach the shops, because most of the time we deliver to a central location and they spread through their shops. In the south of the country, you have more wholesalers, a lot of mom and pops, almost very few modern trade. And when you have a modern trade, it's disguised as a traditional trade because it's, as I mentioned, the bodega style and all this. So you almost have two different countries between these two extremes. And in the center, you have everything mixed because you have a lot of population, so you have a lot of mom and pops, a lot of convenience stores, a lot of modern trade, so in the center. So I would say, look, from both extremes, I wouldn't say there is a big difference of margins between one or the other. You have more synergies or more efficiencies in the supply chain in the north, and in the south you go through wholesalers and sometimes you go alone. Okay? Oh.
Alan.
Two questions. Firstly, I'm not sure, but is Kit Kat available in Mexico? And if not, given the success that you recently seen in Brazil, is that something that you would look to launch? And also, could you talk a bit about the ice cream business? Not one of the bigger businesses, but one would have thought maybe with the climate there's a good opportunity there to develop that category. So maybe those two. Yeah.
Next time I have to go after before Juan Carlos, so I avoid this. So the Kit Kat, yes, we are present in Mexico. We import it from the UK, from our York factory. It's not one of our biggest brands. In fact, our confectionery is, we have acquired a company called Azteca in the 90s. And our big brands are local brands. Carlos Quinto, I mentioned Abuelita, we have Larin, and we have one international brand that is doing very well in Mexico, which is Crunch. Because of the American influence, Crunch is doing well. Kit Kat is there. We believe in Kit Kat, and we're going to develop and make it as successful as it is in Brazil, but it will take a little longer. As Juan Carlos mentioned, in Brazil we tried 3 times with Kit Kat. So we are not on the failing pace, but we are consistent. We are going to maintain. Kit Kat is, if we follow the recipe, it always succeeds. So we are following the recipe of success, and this is going to work. And then the ice cream business. The ice cream business is, first, the ice cream market in Mexico. It's a little scattered because you have a lot of ice cream shops that basically, they are mom and pop shops that sell only ice creams. And these are called La Michoacana. And these shops, they all are called the same, so you think it's like a chain, but in fact it's not. It's thousands of shops, independent, and they call it Michoacana. So when the Mexican want an ice cream, when they are on the street, they go to these shops. And then you have the more organized manufacturers, which is basically Unilever and Nestlé, and we compete in the normal ice cream convenience stores, modern trade, mom and pops, but the other mom and pops, not the Michoacana. And in the case of our competitors, they have also some stores of their own. We don't have that. So this is basically the market of ice cream there. And also in Mexico, the per capita consumption of ice cream is very, very low. Very, very low. So there is an opportunity to go towards growing this market as well. Okay? Yes.
Warren.
Just a question on the World Health Organization has halved its guidelines for sugar consumption. I know it's early days, but given the obesity epidemic in Mexico, just interested in how your business is responding to that announcement from the World Health Organization. Have you started taking out more sugar in your brands? I appreciate it's a wider question for Nestlé, but just in terms of how a market like Mexico is thinking about responding to this potentially big challenge.
Look, all the time we are reformulating and improving the profile of our products. More so with all these new taxes and all that. For example, we reformulated our Nestlé, and our Nestlé is absolutely with no sugar, and we don't fall into the tax, and we are having this. So we have strict guidelines in Nestlé, for example, to achieve nutritional foundation, to have a 60-40 plus, and the plus is the nutritional part. And we screen our portfolio constantly, and we compare with whatever happens on the market. So we always maintain a competitive advantage versus anyone, because nobody stopped and waiting for us to do so. If they improve, we have to improve even better, in order to be at least one step ahead of anyone in the marketplace. So specifically on the new WHO recommendation that is still under discussion, we have not taken specific action on this. We are waiting to see what are the correct regulations, so we don't jump and commit any mistakes, because we have to be careful on changing our formulations and all that. Yes.
Adam.
Hi, it's Adam Spielman again. Are you able to give a figure for the sort of average discount for PPP brands versus mainstream? I mean, I know you've got a lot of different products and sometimes it's different scale. I'd also be very interested to see how that discount compares with the US, if you can give a meaningful figure.
Okay. Probably I will disappoint you. But first of all, on the PPP, you have two possibilities to do it. One is a big size and a very good price per kilo. There you address the price per kilo. Another one is a small size and a not so good price per kilo, but you are addressing the cash flow of the consumer. You have these two realities to work on them. And then, so we don't give a specific discount for this, because it's embedded on the price list and on the strategy of each of those products. So it's not that, it's a PPP, I give 15% discount. It's embedded from the beginning. When you develop a special format or a special product, is embedded in the price list, but from the scratch, from the strategy. Okay? So I told you before that you would be disappointed, but this is...
And it's the same in the United States as well. I guess I can say that, overall, PPP does not mean lower profitability. And as Marcelo mentioned, it's not about a discount. In fact, when you take the whole business model into account, generally we see higher margins in PPP.
And on average, do you see the sort of same revenue per ton, if that's meaningful? I mean, given the fact that some is lower and some is higher because of the different sizes.
I don't know.
Normally, the small sizes are higher per ton.
Sure.
Very, very high per ton. Huh? But you are addressing a different price point, and they don't really care if it is more expensive per kilo, because what they are buying is 10 grams, 15 grams, and 1 liter.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, both are accretive with respect to margin. I don't know the mix between those two different types of formats.